welcome to Clash of Lords 2 Hero Reviews Episode 1, Rath. As the title states, today we're going to be talking about Rath, one of the newest heroes in the game, and frankly one of the most powerful heroes in this game. Rath is a hero that is good in multiple game modes, unlike some heroes that generally tend to shine only in one or two game modes. Rath, he's on my team almost everywhere. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing, and I'll show you why. So, this is my Rath. I am fortunate enough to have one of the best Raths in the game. He's completely maxed out in every way. Maximum enchants, maximum skills, talents are all maxed. It's like my phone's dying here. Let's plug her in. There we go. So, he's got pretty good hit points, pretty good attack power, especially with some good aids on him. I've got him evolved all the way up to Pisces. Really useful. So let's review his skill first. So you'll see when I show you some combat with him later, his skill looks like a little blue ball of skulled goo. It's like a blue skull with goo trailing off the end of it, flying at the enemy. And when it hits that farthest away enemy hero, it's going to do 100% of his attack damage every second, reduce their speed by 50%, and reduce their hit point recovery by 65%. It also, and this is really incredibly important for his skill, it increases the target's active skill cooldown and rage cost by 60 and 150% respectively, and reduces its damage by 50%. So what does that mean? Let's say I drop a Rath and I use his skill and Ambrosia is the farthest enemy away from me. So his skill is going to fly over and hit that Ambrosia, and from that point on until his skill expires, which lasts 8 seconds and cannot be dispelled, that Ambrosia is going to take, instead of 2, let's say at skill level 20, 2 rage to cast her skill, it's going to take her, what is that, 3.2 to cast the entire skill. And then it's actually 150%, so it'll be 3.5 to cast her skill, and the cooldown will then be 60% longer. So it's got a 3-second cooldown. It doesn't really increase the cooldown much, but most importantly, it makes it cost vastly more rage. And then on top of that, it's going to do half as much damage. One of the big dangers of an Ambrosia on defense is when she uses her skill, it'll kill all your mercs in one shot a lot of times. With that damage reduction by 50% all the way up at level 25 here, her skill is very unlikely to kill all of your mercs unless they're incredibly weak. So the skill is incredibly useful and powerful. It only costs 1 rage to use. It costs 1 rage at level 21. And it works up to there, and then after level 21 you don't get any further reduction, but you do get increases to all of its effects. It's a really great skill to use. It doesn't do as much in some modes such as Battle Royale or Guild Boss, but generally speaking the amount of damage Rath does usually makes up for that in my estimation. Now if we look at his aid skill, is called Devour, and this is actually, I think, a really powerful aid skill that's being underutilized right now. So it gives you a 50% chance at max level to dispel a random buff from the enemy hero with the lowest hit points every 3 seconds. Now if you think about that, that's almost a guarantee that every 3 seconds you're going to have a 50% chance to dispel a Pangoli aid immunity off of a hero if it's triggered, because that hero is going to have 0 hit points and therefore by default have the lowest hit points on the enemy team. If that happened to fire off, let's say 1 second after the Pangoli's aid skill kicked in and the hero became immortal, you could potentially save 9 seconds of that hero attacking you with increased attack speed from that Pangoli aid skill just from dispelling it. And on top of that, as if that wasn't good enough, whatever hero Rath is aiding will then get healed for up to 30,000 hit points, and their attack rate will go up by 25% for 6 seconds. That is gigantic. So I actually, let's see here, I actually have a second Rath that I've been working on. His skill's still pretty low. I've got him max gloried, but the idea is when I get this Rath up to being a good aid, I would like to place him right here on this nasty looking Ambrosia. Ambrosia attacks super fast, especially with a blockhead aid, and being able to give her some heals on top of that, and then have her being dispelling people and getting even more attack speed, especially with a bow on her, would be really good on defense. Let's go back to Rath though. So as far as talents go, I think there's a couple options here. I personally prefer to go with Battle Fever, which increases his attack by 8% each talent at max level. So as you can see, that buffs his attack quite a bit. And the reason I do that is because that synergizes really well with his skills. So his active skill deals damage based on his attack damage. So you could, I guess, make the argument that perhaps one of these you might want to have a Blessed Weapons, which is a flat buff to damage, and that generally will give you a little bit more bang for your buck than 3 Battle Fevers would. But in this case, because his skills all seem to synergize so well with his attack value, I chose to go all Battle Fever. Moving on down to evolution skills, his Divine is absolutely broken. This Divine, I've seen people attack me with a Rath. One of the strategies that can be used at very high levels with a very powerful Rath is to place your Rath first and use his Divine skill immediately. And if you're reading this, you can see it sucks hit points out of enemy heroes and transfers those hit points to Rath, healing him. So he can effectively tank by leeching from the enemy heroes while killing them and wasting their Divine skills. And if you can drop Rath and use his Divine skill in an area where you don't trigger the enemy heroes to come and attack you, his Divine skill will not trigger them. You can actually kill enemy heroes before they've even been triggered to come and attack you. I've had it happen to me, and it is very disheartening. And I'll show you what I mean here in a little bit when I'll find a battle where I can drop my Rath and show him sucking a few balls of goo out of the enemy without actually triggering them. So Divine Spectral Call is by far and away, I think, one of the most powerful Divines in the game. It's incredibly powerful in Hero Trials and Coliseum. I tend to run my Rath in my starting 3 heroes. That way when his Divine goes off, he will generally live the entire fight and spend the entire fight sucking hit points out of the enemy. It's great in a number of ways, and I would encourage you to keep checking back and see when I post up some Coliseum videos to show you exactly what his Divine skill can do there. And then running Rath on defense, which is something I choose to do, you get the Fortitude Spook, which is for the first 30 seconds of battle, all defensive structures take 60% less damage from hero skills. It's not necessarily the best defensive skill, but given the overall power level of Rath, I think it's perfectly acceptable and makes him a really good defensive hero. And one of the things that this helps the most is fighting flying teams. Or any team that utilizes Ambrosias and Sphynx, which do large amounts of damage to your entire base via their various AoEs. Most people will drop those within the first 30 or so seconds of the battle, and if they do, then this is going to prevent them from doing as much damage to my structures. Moving on, we see he's got Wizard Mercenaries, so Rath slots right into a Wizard team, which is a fantastic team for Guild Clash, Lords League, Battle Royale. My Wizard team consists of an Ambrosia, a Skull Mage, my Rath, and then 2 other utility heroes, tanks, berserkers, great sages, depending on what my needs are for that mode. And lastly, we've got his enchants. It's the standard stuff at the start. We've got increased attack and hit points, reduced skill damage, increased hit rate. Increased hit rate is incredibly important, something a lot of people undervalue, I think. If you look at the orange weapons, a lot of them have, can give you up to 20 and 30% dodge rate, and hit rate is what counteracts dodge rate. So if you find that your heroes are they feel like they should be really powerful, but you're just not doing much damage, you probably need to find a way to get your hit rate up because you're missing the enemy heroes too often. And then on the last level, we've got the really good stuff, damage reduction, which is really great on Rath, especially with his Divine. It makes him so much harder to kill. Increased damage, of course, always fantastic. And then lastly, Siphon, which affects his Divine skill. At maximum level, it increases the leech by 80%. It varies depending on the power of my weapons and the enemy's weapons, but generally speaking, I've seen my Rath, his Divine skill will leech anywhere from 60 up to 115,000 hit points every second from each enemy within range, for each hero within range. It won't do it from mercs. So I highly recommend enchanting Rath up very high because it makes him immensely powerful. And in particular, I recommend getting the Siphon skill up to maximum, not necessarily right away, but when it makes sense. Generally speaking, I usually would follow a path of maxing out level 1 attack, and then in level 2 I would probably take the hit rate first, and then I would probably go back to level 1 and get 10 levels of hit points, which unlocks the 3rd level, and I would go through maxing the 3rd level before I went back to the 2nd level, starting with damage, then moving on to damage reduction, and finally doing the Siphon. So that's my Rath. as far as equipment goes, he works with a number of different pieces. You can use books on him because he gets the bonus from having wizard mercenaries. You can use swords. His attack rate isn't incredibly fast, but it's not particularly slow either. And then you can use a tyrant brand, which I think is really great. It makes almost all the damage he deals end up having a chance to ignore enemy berserker aids, and that's incredibly powerful. Although it should be noted that his divine skill already ignores berserker aids. Their maximum cap on damage does not affect his divine skill, so it will pull for a full 100,000 hit point or damage or so, depending on what mode you're in and what kind of buffs you have going. So let's see if we can show you a quick little attack here. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into a dungeon. I've got the last dungeon here. I've got my usual wizard team set up here. This is my Lord's League raiding team. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my Rath kind of far away from his heroes, and I want to illustrate to you how I said where you can activate his divine and it won't actually trigger those heroes to attack me yet. So we'll put Rath over here. I'll give him a second. It actually is probably close enough now. There is a range on his divine, but it's most of the map. So you see how he's pulling hit points out of those first three heroes and they all died, and then finally something got close enough to activate the other heroes and they're dead before they even get to him. I didn't even get a chance to activate his skill. He killed him that fast, but these are obviously very weak heroes relative to Rath's strength, so let's go ahead and clear this out really quick. So the same thing will work in Lord's League. Matter of fact, I'll go and do that next, since that'll be a better representation of the kind of power he has. We'll pop into Lord's League really quick, and I'll drop a Rath and see if I can kind of do what people have done to me with him a few times, where I use him to tank up and kind of waste the divines of enemy heroes and potentially kill a few of them before I even drop the rest of my team. Doesn't always work, but let's see if we can make it. So Pangoli up here is pretty weak. Let's drop over by the Pangoli. So we'll drop right in front of him, activate the divine. I've got a couple heroes coming over. I'm a little too far away from Arcane Caster for his divine to actually work there, but you can see he's absolutely shredding that Pangoli. Here comes the Great Sage. He's down there fighting. He's doing almost no damage. The great thing is, when you're using this method and you're tanking with Rath, the more enemy heroes you pull, the stronger he's tanking, because he's actually pulling more hit points. And now you can see that I just killed the Great Sage the first time. He's probably going to get my Rath the second time around. It looks like I'm mostly dead. We'll toss Active Possession out, and you'll see that Active Possession, which just flew over here to Enchantress, it does actually activate her. And by doing that, I triggered Ambrosia as well. So now he's going to get beat down. So let's see if we can't pull this one out really quick. Oh, I didn't get to save him. It's a little too slow, sitting here yakking. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and get 1 star and then exit out of this, and we'll see if we can show you a full-on attack, and I'll show you my general method for using him in Lord's League. He is a part of my guild boss team for most guild bosses. His skill, or his divine skill, helps keep him alive pretty nicely when you're fighting. I'll do one more quick fight, and then I'll probably go ahead and wrap this up, since it's getting a bit long and I try to keep the videos short. Cyber and I kind of throw stuff back and forth at each other. Oh, why'd I get kicked out of there? Why didn't it? Oh, there it is. Okay. We kind of throw stuff back and forth at each other in chat. He's got a really powerful team and a really powerful base, so this will not go well for me, but let's go ahead and drop my Rath down, and actually let's do a full attack. Let's see if I can clear Cyber's base during a live attack. Last time I tried, I only made it to 87%. So this is my general strategy. I drop my Wonton first, activate his divine, trigger everybody, drop my wizards on the opposite side of the base, and then as soon as the enemy Wonton gets to mine, I knock him back. So it gives me a few seconds to pop my Skull Mage divine before Wonton's divine goes off, the enemy Wonton's divine. Keep using my skills. Eventually his Wonton will fire off and it'll target my Ambrosia. Typically I like to save Ambrosia's divine skill for when that happens, so she doesn't take any damage, and then I can activate her active skill while it's still in the air before she gets stunned, and the skill won't fire off until she's finished with her divine. It gives me a little bit of heal to bridge the gap while she's stunned. She doesn't stay stunned very long since I have her enlightened, but so So as you can see, his Ambrosia is an absolute monster. Look at that machine gun. Oh my gods. So I got the 1 star, at least got that far. I probably could have done a little bit better had I not been sitting here talking, trying to explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but you get the idea. So that's Rath in a nutshell. Again, very powerful hero. I highly recommend placing some enchants in him as soon as you can. It greatly increases his power. He's fantastic in a wizard team, which is great for battle royale and guild clash. He can be useful in guild boss. He's great in Lord's League and resource raids. He's good on defense. All around, if I had to give Rath a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 for hero power, I would say he's a solid 9. And I only say that because knowing IGG, they'll come out with some hero that's even better in the next update. But for now, I think he is definitely in that tier 1 of all heroes within the game. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions about Rath or how he works or how to use him, please feel free to drop me a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I encourage you to check back again next week or in future weeks for more hero review videos. I've got pretty much every hero in the game that I work on at various stages, and I will be going through them one after the other and placing review videos just like this, explain what they do, how they work, where you should use them, where they're strongest, and hopefully it's helped everybody. So once again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.